We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Welcome back to another episode of Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. In studio with me, I have Andy from Citizens Doge, and we're going to get into some shit. You know, a lot of things have been happening over the past week. The House voted to release the Epstein files in their entirety with one dissenting vote. What was that? Clay Higgins, right?
From Louisiana, yes.
And you know, what was interesting is, and now I'm not going to jump to conspiracy theories or jump to conclusions the way so many people have. You know, in the political realm, everybody wants to believe that their opponents are the most evil people on the planet, you know, evil incarnate. So the left immediately is going, oh, well, Trump is still calling the Epstein files a hoax. And there's still, and people on the right are also saying that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files and he's guilty and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here saying, you know what? I'm just saying it's not a good look. All right? When everybody on both sides of the aisle are saying this crap needs to be exposed and needs to be released and you're still calling it a hoax, stop calling it a hoax, man. It's not a hoax. It's been something that has been an issue, and during the campaign trail, you brought it up as an issue. Had you not said anything, people wouldn't be holding your feet to the fire right now. But you made a campaign promise, and you know what? When you make a campaign promise and you go back on that promise, or you change your position, people have a right to question everything that you say from that point forward. It is what it is. That's politics, baby. And you know what? Once again, I'm not saying that Trump is guilty. I'm not saying he's in the Epstein files. I'm just saying that releasing the Epstein files is a good thing. Transparency, accountability, efficiency, and efficacy are always a good thing. I don't care what it is.
What kind of transparency do you expect will actually come if this passes through both houses of Congress? I mean, it seems like Trump's going to veto it if it gets to his desk. But, I mean, based upon just the JFK example from earlier this year, I'm wondering what impact this would even have if the files are released. I know I'm coming across like a real cynic, but I'm just wondering exactly how much is going to be divulged that's going to move the public sentiment about this.
I'm expecting a whole lot of redacted information. I'm expecting nothing tangible happening. I'm expecting nobody to get perp walked or get arrested. I'm expecting it to make the podcast circuit for a while, and we're going to be talking about the Epstein files for probably a few weeks because it's interesting and people love focusing on degradation, because that's just the world that we live in right now. However, when it comes to holding high-level people accountable, I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening, and it doesn't matter who's in Epstein files. It just doesn't matter, because the reality is the elites wash each other's backs because they're all a part of a big club, as George Carlin said, and you're not in it. None of us are in it. And that's the reality of it, is we're never going to see a lot of these people get perp walked. The only reason we saw Harvey Weinstein and Allison Mack and so many celebrities get in trouble the way they did is because it got so bad and they were exposed by so many people within their own circles that there was no ignoring it. But we're not talking just celebrities. We're talking politicians. We're talking the most powerful men on earth. And we're talking stuff that is so absolutely abhorrent. I mean, we're talking stuff that takes down governments right now. And I just don't see it happening. I think there are far too many people who are far too powerful who are going to be on that list, who visited Epstein's Island and were involved in a whole bunch of stuff. And let's dispel with some of the stuff. They said when they went to his island, when they went to his house, and that it was wired for sound and video. But yet we have no sound and video. That he had tapes on everyone, but yet we have no tapes on everyone. And that all of that was just a myth. I'm sorry, the investigators that showed up there, the people that worked there, all said there was video and audio surveillance on the whole property recording literally everything. And it was the same with the Diddy case. That all of a sudden, there's no evidence. Now, granted, with the Diddy case is a little bit different because half the people that testified were like, oh man, he was involved in some really shady, messed up stuff. But he's a titan in his career field, and you almost have to admire how impactful he's been, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, yeah, Charles Manson was impactful too. I'm like, Hitler was impactful too. Did you see the Industrial Revolution that happened in Germany during World War II? Look how impactful Hitler was. No, he's still Hitler, dude. He's still Hitler, still a bad guy. Stop humanizing the bad shit. But I don't think anything significant is going to come of this. I think this is a bouncing ball, a red herring that we're going to focus on. And, a lot of people are going to get a lot of good content out of. The ratings are going to spike for everyone. The clicks, likes, shares, retweets, and subscribership are going to soar as everyone talks about the nasty stuff. Because the Tucker Carlson stuff is sort of dying down. The Nick Fuentes stuff is dying down. The Candace stuff is dying down. We can't talk about the Tate brothers anymore because that's dying down. People lost interest in that. So it's what new degradation can we highlight today to distract us from the real stuff that's happening in D.C.? All right. What can we use to distract us from the cost of living not decreasing? What can we use to distract us from the fact that, like Vivek Ramaswamy said, we need to be focusing on making housing affordable, making groceries affordable, making the cost of living go down in the United States so that the average family can survive on one income. That's what people want, and we've heard it for 2 election cycles now. And 2 election cycles now, we haven't got it. During Trump's first term, it was in process. Now, he's trying to undo 4 years of inflation and everything throughout the Biden term. And, I just don't see the tangible results that are going to translate into a massive win in 2026. I mean, everyone's jumping up and doing the cheerleading and saying, oh, look, we're going to win, we're going to win, we're going to win. But if you listen to Scott Preston, you listen to a lot of the activists on the ground, they're saying, no, the hell we're not. We're about to get swamped because you're still not paying. You're doing a victory lap over cultural wins, which aren't really cultural wins. It's just that the left is losing because they've gone so far off the deep end. You're still doing a victory lap over stuff that largely does not affect the average person in their daily life. And you need to focus on the stuff that affects the average person in their daily life, because when you're not, you're going to see that pendulum start to swing back. So I'm expecting not good turnout and not good results in 2026. I'm expecting more friggin' Zohran Mamdani's to get elected. I'm expecting more DEI and more of that crap to be coming down the pipeline. And the Soros Alex Soros now who's taken over the reins to be funding everyone under the sun to destroy America. And I'm expecting Republicans to do what we typically do, which is snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. We should be doing an economic victory lap right now after 2 years in. We should be doing a lot better than we are. And yes, I know that the Democrats are fighting Donald Trump tooth and nail. I know that Republicans are not helping him out nearly as much as they should. most likely because the people in D.C. don't like Donald Trump, don't like the MAGA movement, don't like America First. And I mean intrinsically don't like the idea of putting Americans first. So they're going to thwart him until they can get rid of him. And the fast way to get rid of him is to make sure we have a loss in 2026, so that the next 2 years are a lame duck presidency, so that we don't get a J.D. Vance in 2028, or my ideal ticket which is J.D. Vance, Byron Donalds. And then we get to see the pendulum swing back towards absurdity.
Mm-hmm. And to your point about new Mamdani's, I'm forgetting her name at the moment. Forgive me, but the woman who was just elected mayor of Seattle. I think she's the first in the wave of Mamdani. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you call her Mamdani copycats, but I absolutely 100% agree with you. We're going to see a long wave of those people, and it's going to continue well past next year.
The problem that we're going to have is, instead of doing postmortem on why we lost in New York, everyone is still saying flee New York. Mm-hmm. Guess what? The reason why Mamdani got elected is because every sane person in New York was told to flee New York. And when the left comes marching, your answer is to run away. Imagine Mike Tyson stepping in the ring, and the only thing he did was run. That's what you're doing right now. You want to know why you can't save the Republic? You can't save the Republic because you don't got the balls. You don't have the balls to stand up. You don't have the balls to fight. You don't have the balls to stick your feet in the tire, center ring, and go toe-to-toe with your opponent. You run. That's your methodology. It's like you got lace panties on and you're expected to be taken seriously in a boxing ring. That's what we're dealing with right now as conservatives, and that's the reason why I think that we're not heading in a good direction right now.
Conservatives and conservative politicians and thought leaders in particular need to be more forceful in calling out the I'm speaking in stereotypes here, the purple-haired, overeducated, underemployed types who voted for Mamdani and this woman, forgive me for forgetting her name, who was just elected mayor of Seattle, because without dismantling their claims and their talking points at every turn and just saying, hey, why don't you pick up an actual book? Why don't you read about the real world? Why don't you learn about the problems of real people who don't live in enclaves like Bedford-Stuyvesant? Or, I guess Bedford-Stuyvesant is not the most upscale part of Brooklyn, but the more upscale parts of Brooklyn, Queens, and so forth, or the nice parts of Seattle, like
Katie Wilson.
Katie Wilson, thank you very much. Sorry for that. That unless those people's worldview is actively put on a dartboard, and conservatives just keep throwing darts at it, they will have a point of high ground to just keep their flag in, and conservatives, whatever we try to do to try to take that flag out of the ground is just not going to work.
Well, here's the problem, is the over-intellectualizing of the issue, right? The average person in the country doesn't know what socialism is, doesn't know what communism is, doesn't know what Marxism is, sure as hell doesn't know what democratic socialism is. And that's the issue. That's the main issue, is we're using rhetoric to attack them, going, look at this is a socialist, this is socialist, this is socialist. And the average person's going, especially the average young person, is going, what's so bad about socialism? Because we don't educate, we indoctrinate. And piggybacking on the indoctrination point, I wonder how many people, if you actually ask them, now I know the on-the-street interview context is not really a reliable litmus test for what the public knows about issues or about, this person or that person who just became famous and who they are, what they believe. But the fact that Mamdani comes from a family of academics and artists, and it comes from a father who is a professor of like the history of colonialism or neo-colonialism. I forget exactly what his title is in the Columbia faculty. But the fact that he's had a long-standing career peddling the ideas that his son is now the mouthpiece for, that should concern everybody. And I hope sincerely that going forward, more and more people, not just on the conservative side, but in the middle, in the true silent majority middle, whatever middle actually remains in the electorate, understand that these Mamdani types,
so many of them come from backgrounds like that. And the fact that they're so certain, they come across as so certain about what they believe, that's absolutely not a coincidence. They're not men or women of the people. They're from uppity backgrounds where they were insulated from any ideas that go against the worldview they're now preaching to people like themselves.
But here's the problem, is their rhetoric approaches the actual problems.
That's true.
So they address the problems, and we're steady saying, don't believe your lying eyes. They're not really problems. I'm like, you ran on the problems, on solving the problems, and now you're saying the problems aren't problems because your guy is in office. The problems are still problems. We're not proposing an alternative. We're out there going, oh my God, this guy's a socialist. All right, sell me capitalism. Sell me free market capitalism. And I had to have a conversation. So I had a conversation with a guy from Germany, and he was talking about, oh, well, Germany's got a socialist government. I go, and he's got Switzerland, Norway, Finland, they got socialist governments. I go, they have less regulations in their economy than we do. They just have a huge social system and a high level of taxation because of it. I go, that's different. We're supposed to be a free market capitalist society, and we have more regulations than half the countries we're criticizing. I go, that's a problem. I go, if you had the social system, but you had raw capitalism over here, people would not have a problem with the safety net over here if we had the growth in the cost of living and everything that we have over here. But we don't have that. We're not the capitalist system that we preach so enthusiastically. So there's a disconnect. And I'm sitting here going, no, social democracy is not the same as socialism. Having social safety nets is not the same as socialism. Divorce the two. Okay? The issue is if you're regulating all of your growth, all of your innovation, and you're putting guardrails on how much people can achieve and how high they can go, you're actually also putting guardrails on what feeds into those social systems, which is why all of those countries in Europe get criticized for not taking care of their own, of not contributing to the UN when it comes to their GDP. When it militarily, of course. So, and that's a big expenditure for most countries in the world, is having a standing military and the ability to defend yourself should something arise, especially if you're outside the gates of Russia. And I'm sitting here going, I don't know, start explaining this stuff. Maybe we need to start educating people. We need to get the over-intellectualization out of it, because we're missing normal people. We need to inspire people. If you're not out inspiring people, you're allowing your enemy to create the narrative. And then you're responding to the narrative as if the counterpuncher is ever going to be as good as the guy who's on the attack. All right, that's it for the first segment. Come back to us in about 90 seconds. We're going to have Ryan McDermott, who has a contention that winning World War II, according to a sad D-Day veteran, was not worth the result. We're going to get into it up next. Stay tuned.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Unleashing your humble alpha is the key factor to unlocking profound leadership, unshakable confidence, clarity of purpose, and the quality of life you dream of. As combat veterans and military leaders Stephen Kuhn and Lane Ballone Decode how you can master your life, conquer everything that stands in your way, improve your ability to cope with stress, and run toward greatness. You can find Unleash Your Humble Alpha on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And I raise my hands to the sky. What a feeling, time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Hollywood has sold its soul with woke agendas, hypocritical elites, and a culture in ruins. But one man dares to fight back. Mike Holman, the world's greatest newsman, teams up with billionaire Pierce Polk. Armed with cutting-edge AI and unlimited grit, they infiltrate Tinseltown's underbelly, expose the rot, and launch an all-out assault on the media machine. Blockbusters, written by best-selling author Scott McKay. It's a satirical thrill ride to reclaim American storytelling and disrupt the oligarchy and ignite the spark of true culture. Because some blockbusters are meant to bust the system and save the silver screen, one blockbuster at a time. You can find Blockbusters in Amazon.
Look at that. It's so sad.
Welcome back to Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. We're in our second segment, and yes, the world is being taken over by socialists. The socialists are coming, and our problem is we spend more time attacking socialism and trying to fight ideas with bullets than we do fighting ideas with better ideas. We need to inspire the next generation. We need to inspire people to get active. This is a federalist system. You need to get active at your local government, your state government, and your federal government in that order. Recognize where you can be effective, get up off your butts and do it, because if you want to save the republic, if you want to keep the republic, as Benjamin Franklin said, you have to be active. Up next, we have our guest, Ryan McDermott, author of Downriver, a memoir of a poet. He is an executive in the aerospace and defense industry and former senior Pentagon official. U.S. Army veteran, he served from 2000 to 2006, leading a platoon in a combat with 3rd Infantry Division during 2003 invasion of Iraq. He's a recipient of the Bronze Star Medal and earned a Ranger Tab and Combat Infantryman Badge. We love our veterans on this show. This is a veteran-owned and operated media company, Ram TV Live. If you're not part of the Ram TV Live family, you need to join, especially if you're a veteran and you get sick of being, you get sick of being fed narratives by people who don't actually give a shit about you and only use you for profit. How you doing, Ryan? Welcome.
Doing great. How are you doing today? Thank you for having
me. I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day up here. It's nice. And we're in the live free or die state. It is absolutely amazing.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it's starting to get darker earlier and earlier, I notice, and getting chilly. So it's starting to feel like winter. I'm in sort of the Northern Virginia area right now. So,
yeah, I am all set with winter right now. As I get older, my bones hurt. I can feel the temperature dropping well before it does.
Yeah.
So we have you on today to discuss why winning World War II was quote not worth the result, according to a D-Day veteran. Mm-hmm. Where is this coming from? That's
I took a look at the article, and I understand it's sort of gone viral in some circles, and I think it has to do with some disillusionment. Veterans, I think every veteran probably feels this way. You fight for your country, you fight for values that you hold dear true. There may not be connective tissue to everything that happened in World War II and sort of the disillusionment from the whatever the sort of political decisions. It's not tied directly, just like issues for the global war on terror. There are many things to discuss and have issue with on policy. But I think it's really about, from what I took away from the article is sort of maybe a cultural identity, disillusionment, and freedom, and potentially in some change of freedoms. So it's a you noted it was a British veteran, correct? Like 100-year-old D-Day veteran. And I'm looking at the article right now. Did I lose you?
No, I'm still
Okay.
here. I was actually, so we were talking about this right before we started this segment about
Okay.
how sad it must be for the greatest generation to watch literally everything that they fought for come to fruition. They fought against come to fruition. And I know for those of us who fought in Iraq, those who fought in Afghanistan, we've seen a lot of the work that we thought we were doing overseas, be undone. Not due to our own mistakes, but due to policy, due to politics, because politics is the fastest way to ruin the results of any war. And we're seeing that with the greatest generation. And, we fought communism, we fought Nazism, socialism, and now we have out communists and out socialists in our very government in the United States and throughout Europe that are, proud and loud. And unfortunately, a lot of the stuff that we were against is about 95% of the way there to being accomplished.
Well, I think that speaks to sort of the need. I think veteran, anyone who served is sort of higher purpose and remaining engaged in the process and committed to the process. So, it's one of those things where it's weird to see different results we may have. Like for instance in New York, and elsewhere where it's like, how did that sort of disconnect between where things were sort of 25 years ago to where we are today. My book kind of talks a little bit about a journey over 25 years. It really kind of starts off in the early 2000s, and my hope is that the book kind of gets people thinking about the journey where we've been to where we are now. I think one of the formative moments that kind of kicks off like the second part of my book is this, the 9/11. 9/11 had an enormous impact on our national psyche. It drove a lot of us to want to serve, and I had already committed to service, and so but I've got a lot of friends who weren't serving and then decided to join the military and to ultimately serve in the global war on terror, and so part of that journey goes into my Iraq, and so others have gone to Afghanistan over many years. And when I got back, I decided to get out, and I went to work on Wall Street. Kind of the third part of my book gets into, realizing, this was sort of, I go into this like, you fight for something, you're mission focused, and then when you get back, and you reintegrate, and this is really what I'm kind of focused on, is the reintegration piece. It's two sides. Our society is benefited by understanding the service and that our servicemen and women undergo, and then also as a veteran, understanding that civilian world is different. So I went into investment banking, and I remember feeling like, wow, it's an interesting dynamic here. There's a whole war going on. I've got friends dying every day, people that and everyone here that I kind of ran into was not connected to that. And I think there's something to that effect where there's a different, sort of, I don't know what the percentage of veterans who served. It's like single digits, maybe even low single digits who've served overseas in the past 20 years who, you put your life on the line and you come back and there's a disconnect between what's being discussed, what's being considered in sort of the work environment, but also like culturally. And you start to wonder, was the purpose meaningful? And so that, I think you could draw a line through that to today where we are. And I think, with the sort of end of the global war on terror, how that ended. And I think a lot of veterans sort of look back and sort of evaluate their service in that context of what does it mean, but also it's not just that, it's also the world we live in. Is it, and I think this ties to that article, is do we feel like we have the sort of the country, the world, the way we want it, we thought our sacrifice is merited? And, I think one thing, veterans can do is we keep engaging in the social, keep engaging and you can, there's a lot of veterans that run for office and, you can support candidates. I try to avoid, just to be candid, I try to avoid partisan. I have to be careful. My son is in the military and I don't want to get in trouble with him. And he's a second lieutenant now in the Army. But you can support candidates and my person, who support our values. And I think that's a key thing that we can do.
I think one of the biggest problems that I've seen throughout, transitioning back to civilian life is how reticent the average. I think everything went wrong in society when we got to a point in society where we, don't discuss politics, don't discuss religion. And when you take those very valuable, intrinsic, value-based discussions out of the normal dialogue, in society, because we used to be able to discuss them in a very respectful manner. We took them out of dialogue. There were so many things that needed to be said that weren't being said. And now we've gotten to the point, thanks to social media and the internet, where a lot of this stuff is coming back. And a lot of this stuff is way overdue to be brought into the ether. We could have avoided where we are right now. But because we didn't, because we weren't having those very valuable discussions and having them in a respectful manner, now we've drifted so far apart rhetorically in this country and abroad as well, that there's no middle ground to have a rational discussion anymore, because we're coming at things from very radical idealistic viewpoints. And the vast majority of people working in politics, myself being a political strategist, we're the vast majority of people who work in politics in DC, in the media, even podcasts, are heavily idealistic. The vast majority of people in the United States and in most countries are not heavily idealistic. So the conversations are being driven by people who have an axe to grind and things they want to accomplish that don't necessarily match what the average person wants or cares about. So we're all stuck in between as this argument is being held around us. And now if you start to pay attention, you start to get active, you get sucked into the argument too, battling who's memorized each other's, their side's talking points the best, instead of talking about real solutions. When it comes down to war and how we conduct wars, why we get into wars, so on and so forth, I see a lot of the very same thing. I see a lot of, there's the narrative that gets pushed to promote the war and the war effort, and then there's the on the ground, what is actually happening. And for some reason, the on the ground, what is actually happening and what needs to happen never makes it into the halls of DC, never makes it into the halls of Congress, never makes it into the ether or the national dialogue the way it should, which is why we don't get the results that we need to. Essentially, we're trying to fight ideas like terrorism, like jihadism, Islamic jihad, or communism or socialism. We're trying to fight it with a bullet. We're trying to fight it with a tank. We're trying to fight it with missiles. You can't kill an idea with bullets. You have to fight it with a better idea. And we have been woefully underarmed in that regard.
Yeah, no, I think I think, the sort of foundation of, I think, United States is, sort of on a meritocracy, and, sort of you get down to the fundamental sort of aspects. I mean, a lot of people left Europe because they didn't want oppression. They wanted the freedom, the frontier, to go seek out their own wealth. I mean, I think, and immigration over the years and decades and centuries since it's a land of opportunity, abundance. And one of the key ingredients of that is this sort of idea that of a meritocratic system, sort of driven by the laws, and the way that, it gets down to the nitty-gritty sort of patent laws. Like if you invent something with your own money or capital, you own the rights to it, and that incentivizes that type of innovation. And that's just like one sort of narrow point about the ideas that you're talking about, like being able to defeat, and some of that can be kind of driven into, we could kind of potentially draw a line. My kids are all just graduated high school and into college, and it's very different. Their education in some ways, I think, maybe have been watered down to a degree. They're also getting heavily educated and influenced by social media. It's just huge. And you brought this up, for better or worse, like I'm not a provocative person. I'm just not. But I realize that what you have in the sort of blogosphere of everything is being provocative is one way to get attention, to drive viewership. You're trying to do that. It's how do you drive that? And so there is, but one of the other things I've noticed is people I think everyone now with technology gets sort of sucked into an algorithm where you start seeing the same stuff over and over. And this happens on all sides. And it's like you almost have to deliberately take yourself out of whatever stovepipe or algorithm you're in to kind of see what other people are talking about. And because we're no longer, I think you were pointing this out, have to kind of like deal with other perspectives. And this is kind of a theme I like to sort of plug my book as it kind of goes into this, is part of the plot arc is this idea that there's a relationship issue that I had with my mother. She, as we sort of in part 1 and in part 3 kind of resolves it. And it's around our perspective of a certain event where we lost our home. I had a certain perspective on it. She had a different perspective on it. And that created a division because we didn't really fully appreciate each other's perspective on that situation. Years and years later, we had a very heartfelt conversation about that. And I learned her, some of the other experiences that she had gone through. And she heard my side of how what I was dealing with, and it helped us bridge that and heal. And I think some of what you were just saying about that dialogue and the exchange of ideas and putting down ideas, or is to be able to have that discussion so that there is at least a mutual understanding. I think it's easy to say, hey, what is common ground we both want? I think we all want. Like for me, I want the best future for my kids. You look back generationally, you kind of see how it all ties together. Our great grandkids are, a lot of separation, but families sort of mix, and we all hopefully remain Americans. But that theme of being able to understand where the differences are, being able to listen, is important.
I 100% agree. I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It has been a pleasure, and I want to give you an opportunity to plug your book. Where can people find it and support your work?
Oh, thank you. Downriver, Memoir of a Warrior Poet by Ryan McDermott. That's me. You find it at Amazon is probably the best thing. It's $3.99 on this month. It's discount for the ebook. So go to Amazon, Downriver, Memoir of a Warrior Poet. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, thank you, and I look forward to having you back, hopefully in the near future. That'll be it for this segment of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. If you are not a part of the Ram TV Live family, make sure you join so we can keep giving you good information and keep providing with you with different perspectives, because I'm here to shatter your preconceived notions that are handed down to you by the mainstream media and your favorite moronic pundit. Tune in 90 seconds, and we'll be right back for our final segment with Dr. Gilda Carl, one of the favorites of the show. See you in a few.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive. And I raise my hands to the sky. What a feeling. Time to feel it. This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
How do you know when you've made the right decision? It's the feeling you get in your gut. The one that tells you what's right or wrong. It's the one that says, sure, I can have a drink. Or the feeling that says, okay, I've been drinking. Now what? It's the voice inside you that says, I'm buzzed. Better leave the car when it's time to go. Plan ahead. Catch a sober ride. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
That was the Elvis Wedding Chapel in Las Vegas, where we got to, for a moment, see Elvis, an Elvis impersonator, actually marrying a couple. We were just saying, we don't even want to know how much crazy stuff has gone in that gone on in those places. I remember the Hangover? They had the scene with the little white chapel in Vegas. I freaking love those movies, man.
I'm wondering what the song performed at the wedding or performed during the ceremony may have been. I hope it wasn't Suspicious Minds.
Oh, I ain't nothing but a hound.
I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised with all the people there. Actually, that lady, she was bawling there. Anyway, so going back to you.
All right. So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Mamdani, and Mamdani decided he was going to have nothing but women, an all-female transition team. I don't know what the value is of having all women. I don't know what the value is of having all men in your transition team. Honestly, I don't know what the value is of having either particular sex in abundance in any facet whatsoever, except if you're Maura Healey I don't know, maybe your commission on women's rights and the betterment of women in Massachusetts should probably actually be a woman. Who knows? It freaking baffles me.
God
that
help my-
in society, the best woman is a man.
God help my home state.
Dude, chalk up another win for the patriarchy. We just keep kicking women's asses. Apparently, we're better at being women of the year, women's sports, friggin' gold medals at the Olympics and stuff. Apparently we do better in women's bathrooms than we do in men's bathrooms. I just don't know what it is about women. Y'all just are insufficient in your own spaces, apparently. The best woman is a man, according to the left. The cheerleaders for women's rights have done more to deconstruct everything good that it was to be a woman than anybody else in all of history. Feminism is a con, people. It is a bad con. It hasn't worked out for women. Your drug addiction rates are higher. Your crime rates are higher. Your suicide rates are higher. Your suicidal ideation rates are higher. Your antipsychotic and antidepressant rates are higher. And you went from possibly working maybe 20 hours a week if you wanted to now you're working 40 to 60 hours a week. You're not getting married. You're not having children. You're more depressed than you've ever been in your entire life. And you're more likely to have 4 or 5 cats when you die. I guess it's worked out great. And you're getting beat out for jobs in women's spaces by dudes. Hey, maybe you just don't got the balls for it. But our next guest is Dr. Gilda Carl. She's a favorite of the show. We love having her on, especially when it comes to talking about men and men's spaces and men's mental health. And it is November. It's Men's Mental Health Month. I hope you're taking it seriously because every year it seems to pass without notice other than a few memes and videos we see online. How you doing, Doctor? Nice to have you back on the show.
I'm so fine, and I'm so glad that I am here with you today. It's always a joy to be on your show.
Thank you for coming back. We love having you. If you don't know, Dr. Gilda Carl is the author of Real Men Don't Go Woke, the book they would not publish, The Truth That Must Be Told. She has appeared on most TV talk and news shows. She was the host of Fox's Dr. Gilda TV show pilot and MTV's Love Doc. I am so glad you were here with us today. I swear it's like we're living in the Twilight Zone right now.
I can't open up a newspaper every morning to see the horrendous statistics that we have. First of all, men are lagging behind women in so many different arenas. You try education, you try healthcare, you try the boy crisis, young boys not knowing who they are or who they should be. How about domestic violence? There are more men beaten up than women, and nobody's talking about that. We continue to yap about women not being treated well. Well, it's actually the other way around. We have found that because I'm the spokesperson for the International Council for Men and Boys, and we have all these PhDs doing plenty of research, and the findings are frightening. We are finding that men are behind women in 12 specific areas. So I don't know what the point is for Ma'am Donnie to have all women as part of his team or all of his team. It makes no sense to me. And I thought, by the way, DEI was going out the door. What has happened? If you hire somebody simply because she's a female, what are you doing? Where is the merit? Where are the credentials?
Well, in politics is famously a career field where you fail upwards. So I don't know about credentials. It seems like everyone in politics that gets promoted seems to suck at whatever they did prior and finds their home in politics. There's famously a lot of people who tried acting careers before going into politics, and then they become the best actors on the planet pretending to care about what we care about. But you're 100% right. And one thing that I did notice about when I was researching domestic violence statistics is The women are more likely to be arrested when it is a one-way domestic violence situation, meaning one person abusing the other. Men are more likely to be arrested when it is mutual abuse, when both parties are hitting each other. And the reason is because the damage that men do, most of the men are being arrested when responding to being slapped or being hit, pushing, hitting back, so on and so forth. But the women are actually more often to be arrested for hitting somebody with a blunt object, or stabbing somebody, or actually attempting to kill them. And it's a weird thing, because if you were to look at the society's narrative regarding domestic violence, you would swear to God men were going around just beating the crap out of women left and right. But that's just not true. And I experienced it growing up. There was this idea, I can hit you, but you can't hit me. Not only can I hit you, but you can't hit me, I should be able to hit you, and you should never be able to defend yourself against me. And if you ask even most men in society, they will say a woman can hit you, but under no circumstances at any point in time should you ever raise a hand or defend yourself against a woman. And I find that to be incredibly disturbing, because every person has agency and deserves the inherent right to protect themselves and to take their safety and their body, their highest level of property, very, very seriously.
If you are in a relationship of any kind, the moment you lift your hand and sock somebody, that moment, the relationship is over.
Yep.
The interchange is over, and you have very little recourse as a result of that, because you have already used violence. Raising your hand is violence. Words are what we talk about. Words are the only answer to getting things solved. You know, you see our President Trump, going into all these countries, having all these leaders talk to him. Not once does he lift a hand and slap somebody if he doesn't like what they say. He got into an altercation with several different people. He did not raise his hand. As a matter of fact, what he did do was he said to one person, the Ukraine leader, he said, "You can leave now. It's over." And that's how you dissolve problems. But you don't use fisticuffs. It all goes back to, and I'm a student of Sun Tzu's Art of War. It all goes back to him talking about using communication rather than combat. Combat is the last thing that you use in order to get your points across, in order to be taken care of. So this is, it goes in the wrong direction of lifting your hands against anybody, whether you're male or female. You just don't do it. So that's to begin with. Now, as far as the domestic violence statistics, a lot of people are very confused about them. They are under the impression that men are going around, just as you had said, and slapping the heck out of women. That is not the case. There are higher statistics of females hitting men and slapping them and doing all kinds of outrageous things to men than there are to men doing that to women. And it's interesting that women will choose most often poison to get rid of their men. Men don't do that. Men, well, if they want to get rid of their woman, they have other means of doing that. And it is usually more violent. But the fact that A, you once loved somebody, and B, suddenly that love has turned to such anger is something that you have to look at. Because when I am counseling somebody, I always ask, what happened in the relationship? And they say, well, I don't know. Oh, yes, you do know. You stand back and you look at this as though it's in a picture frame. And my whole, my decision as to what I'm going to do next is a result of frame it, claim it, tame it. You put yourself in a picture frame, you stand away, and you see yourself. What are you doing? How are you enacting? What are you saying? What are you doing to raise the temperature of what's going on in that room? So that's frame it. Claim it. Claim what you are feeling. Not what he's doing, not what he's telling you, but claim what you're feeling. And then tame it. And that is not tame him. That is tame your emotions so that your emotions don't walk out the door with you in a very violent way. That's dangerous. So we have opportunities of when we're angry, and anger is a wonderful emotion to tell us something is not right. So when we're angry, we have a choice: acting it in, internalizing it, and you know what that does. That makes you sick, fat, and awful. Or acting it out. And that's what P. Diddy did. That's what Harvey Weinstein did. That's what the violent people in our communities do.
Mm-hmm.
What are we? This is supposed to be 2025 civilized, in a civilized country, in a civilized environment. And that's when we use Sun Tzu's Art of War to communicate, not to go to combat. That is the very last thing you do.
I think
So,
where we got to this point.
I'm on a roll on this thing.
Yeah. I think where we got to this point in society is because we got to a point where we allowed the average person to dismiss all duties and responsibilities that they have to themselves, to their family, to their communities, and instead validate and affirm your feelings. And the worst thing that you should do is allow your emotions to be the main thing driving your decision making, because your emotions are fleeting. Your emotions, they come, they go. And this is one of the things I've said. The reason why happiness being the barometer for how most people tend to operate and why the psychology field has become so destructive is because when you tell somebody that self-actualization is their happiness and that is the highest thing that they should be achieving in life, I like to say, what would it take you? Think of your happiest moment. Think of the things that make you happy. Riding, I don't know, eating ice cream. I was a pretty happy moment, right? You know, a big fat banana split feels I'm really happy. What would happen if I spent all day, every day eating banana splits? I'd end up fat. I'd end up diabetic, probably having a heart attack. I'd spend an insane amount of money. I'd probably die of malnutrition. And that's the problem, is when you really start to think happiness is fleeting, happiness is a momentary thing, what we should be striving for is to be content. To be content with where we are in life, content with where we're going in life, content with the things we have, with the people we're around, with our relationship. Yes.
Consistently content, not these ups and downs, depending on all of these outside factors. Are we going to depend upon, oh, that boss pissed me off, I am so upset? Well, no. You have to have your own level inside yourself. You determine how happy and content you are. And if somebody sets you off, boy, you're pretty vulnerable. You are pretty reactive. That is not a healthful way to live your life. That's absolutely out of the question. Now, as far as Mom Donnie is concerned, now that's a very interesting point, because I used to live in New York. I got out of New York, and I'm so glad that I did. It's extremely important for people to understand what this whole world, in our country in particular, has been built upon. We are a capitalistic society. That means we work hard for what we actually receive, what we earn. And so if somebody decides, if Mom Donnie decides to put in an all-female cast, rather than even a spattering of men around, I don't know about anybody else out there in this audience, but I love working around testosterone. That is a different outlook than what I have. And if we're trying to build an organization, we need an interchange of the feminine and the masculine. So I don't know how this is going to work out. I suspect that after a while, he will realize it's not working out too well and go with not all female or all male, but people who deserve to be at the top of their game.
Well, I 100% agree with you. Let's give you a chance to plug your book, Real Men Don't Go Woke, by Dr. Gilda Carl. The book they would not publish, The Truth That Must Be Told. Tell people where they can find it.
Oh, Amazon. Come to my website, drgilda.com, and see all the people who have said so many things about this. This book changed so many men's lives. One man had chosen to kill himself, and then he saw the book, he read it, and he said he chose against that. So I feel so grateful to have done this book. And the big publishers would not publish it. That's why this subtitle is The Book They Would Not Publish, The Truth That Must Be Told. But that's okay, I took care of it myself.
All right, that's it for this episode of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast. This is Dr. Gilda Carl. Make sure you go buy her book and support her work. She is a friend of the show. We love having her on, especially during November, Men's Mental Health Month. Take your mental health seriously. Go seek help. And remember, introspection is one of the best things you can do in your life, but it is painful. It is painful to look in the mirror, and it is painful to take ownership of the things that you've made mistakes on in your life and to spend that time to correct it. I know, I'm doing it. I've been there. I've done it.
I have to. That's the only way we get through the dark tunnel into the light.
100%. And if you're looking for another book to read, go get, United We Stand, A Marine's Fight. That's my book, and you can get that on Amazon too. If you're sick of the prevailing media narratives and you want to change your perspective to focus on solutions, it's a book you should read. God bless everyone. That's it for Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast tonight. Come join the Ram TV Live family, veteran owned and operated. Take your mental health seriously and tune in at 7 o'clock because Granite State Live is up next. God bless everyone. See you next week.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Essiard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.